This is Lara, aka the Sound Sommelier, here with DJ Khalil. What's your earliest memory of hip hop?
My earliest memory of hip hop. Oh man. I remember I remember I remember I remember hearing Rapper's Delight, and it was on the Eid. It was like right after Ramadan. I remember we were going to the masjid to pray in the, like I think it was after actually we were leaving prayer, and I remember hearing it on the radio, and I was just like, my mind was blown. You know what I mean?
Do you remember how old you were?
I don't even remember. I have no idea. I just remember me and my brothers were just hyped. We were just like, we wanted to hear the song over and over and over again, and they were playing on the radio and stuff. So it was incredible. I mean, that was like life changing. That's probably like my earliest memory for sure.
Nice. So you grew up on the West Coast. What are some of the earliest records you recall playing in your home?
On the West Coast,
Doesn't even have to be on the West Coast. Whatever.
My relationship with hip hop is crazy because my dad coached at Compton College, and all his players were from New York. So, at a certain point, they used to stay at the house, all kind of stuff. So we would hang out with them, and they would get tapes from back home. So we would literally, we were getting like, basically listening to New York radio. Like that was like, it was just like mind blowing what we were hearing every day. I was like, who are all these people? You know what I'm saying? And that was kind of like how I got exposed. There was actually one of my dad's players, his name's Action, and he used to watch us. Like he used to watch me and my brothers and like take us to school and all that kind of stuff. And so we would literally, to and from school, he would just play hip hop, everything from Mr. Magic, Red Alert, Chuck Chill Out. We used to hear all those radio shows. So that's really like, I would just be in the back seat, just quiet. Like he was like, you never made a, like we talked recently, and he was like, you never said anything. You were just like internalizing everything. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I just remember like, I don't even know, this just how I felt. It was just like it was just it just became a part of me, literally. So that was I'll never forget it. I mean, I think I have maybe a couple of those tapes somewhere, Red Alert, and like I remember hearing Run DMC live on the radio, and I just thought that was like the most incredible incredible moment ever in hip hop. You know what I mean? That was just the rawest, just hearing Run and doing Run's house, you know what I mean? Like him saying Run's house, who's house? You know what I mean? That was the first time you heard it. So yeah, that was insane.
Yeah, I feel bad for this generation who doesn't really get to grow up with the radio that we had growing up. Like they have the whatever satellite radio, but nothing will compare to that. Yeah. So speaking of your father, he was an American college, Olympic, and pro basketball player and college basketball coach, like you mentioned. You also played high school and college ball as a point guard, just like him. What are some of the most valuable lessons you learned from your father in the sport?
Well, I mean, my dad played for John Wooden. He was College Player of the Year in 1964. They won. They were the first team to win a national title. That started the whole dynasty, the UCLA dynasty. So, and so I grew up with the pyramid of success in every room. Like literally, I just, I went to John Wooden camp every summer. Like, I mean, I don't even know how young I was, but I just remember that was like every summer we went to John Wooden camp. So it was really learning the pyramid of success, like understanding like, when I started playing organized basketball, my dad was just teaching us like, the foundation of the game, the fundamentals, all that kind of stuff. So it applies to everything, anything you do, like even with music. When I first started making music, I remember playing it for my dad, and he was just like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? Because I had no idea. I didn't know the fundamentals of music. I didn't know that stuff had to be in key. I didn't know that like you had to arrange it and you had to, I was just literally like just throwing loops together and thinking that it was music. And he was just like, this isn't music. So that was like, it was, I mean, it just applied. I mean, like literally being a point guard is like, I always say it's the same thing as being a producer. If you're in the studio, the point guard has to run the plays, has to make sure they have to be the leader, and you lead in different ways. Everybody responds differently. So as a point guard, you have to, You have to understand that, okay, I can't get on this person and I can't yell at him, or I can't do it. You know, you have to adapt to whoever you're working with. So, I mean, those point guard skills came in handy. And I think it's just being like unselfish, like being an unselfish player, you know, being able to, you know, pass the ball off to somebody who can hit the shot, you know, and you understand everybody's role. So it's like, it's really no different in terms of being a producer. It's like understanding like that, you know, all these, you know, everybody that you come across, you know, they have a specific skill, and it's really bringing the best out of them. And that's really like what a producer's job is to bring the best out of everybody in the room. And, you know, so that's there, you know, those are huge lessons that I learned from my dad. Yeah.
When did you start DJing?
I started DJing in 7th grade, which was like 87. And my dad used to throw parties. Like, everything ties into my dad. My dad used to throw parties when he coached at UCLA. And so he coached like Reggie Miller and Pooh Richardson, all those guys.
Can I interrupt you really quick? My lucky number is 31 because of Reggie Miller.
Yeah, he was my favorite player. He was my favorite player in college. Like, every day I watched him in practice. Like, I literally tried to shoot just like him. I would shoot like 300 shots a day after school. And like, I just couldn't believe his range. You know, he was like, everybody talks about Steph Curry. Nobody remembers Reggie Miller in college. And like, as soon as he crossed half court, you had to get up on him. And like, and back then when you watch TV, you would literally just see the ball go up. You wouldn't even see Reggie. You would just literally see the ball go up and in the basket. This was before they had the 3-point line and all that. So it was like, you know, to be around them, you know, but going back to my dad, he used to throw these parties for the players at the end of the year. And so there's a legendary DJ from LA. His name is DJ Reg. He mentored Battle Cat. He mentored me. And DJ Reg used to do all my dad's parties. So before the parties, when he was setting up, I would just harass him, like, can I please, you know, can you just show me how to DJ? And he would let me get on. I remember he had Bring the Noise by Public Enemy. And like, you know, that was just like, I think that's when that came out. It was either Rebel Without a Pause or Bring the Noise. I can't remember, but he would let me, he had doubles. So he would let me get on and he would show me how to do it. And he would just let me do it for like a half hour before every party. And I was like, oh my God, I have to keep doing this. So I had a friend in 7th grade who had turntables. He had his own turntables, but he kept getting in trouble. He couldn't DJ. He could, you know, so he was like, yo, you can borrow my turntables. And I was like, really? All right, cool. So like, I started doing parties with his turntables, and like, I saved up money. Like, I started making money and I saved up my money, and then I bought my own turntables and I gave his back. And then I just kept going from there. And I just literally, that's all I did all day was I would just try to make like mixtapes. You know, back then, you know, Dr. Dre used to have, you know, they used to sell mixtapes at the Rodeo Swap Meet. And like, you know, I grew up, you know, off of those mixtapes. So it was like, that was like a big, you know, big culture was like getting those DJ mixtapes from the swap meet. And they were like, it was incredible. So, you know, I was just trying to figure out how to make tapes just like Dr. Dre and some of these other, you know, DJs back in the day. And even listening to 1580 K-Day, you know, and the Mixmaster Show and all that kind of stuff. So it was, you know, we had a big DJ culture out here. You know, I was just trying to figure it out, you know, but I loved it. I was DJing till like 4 or 5 in the morning. You know what I mean? If my parents let me, like, I would try to DJ as much as possible. So,
did they support when you started to get into that more?
Oh my God, my parents are supporting me from day one. They were like, if you know, they knew I had a passion for music. They supported me from day one. I mean, everything I wanted to do, you know, they were just like, you know, if I found something I liked, they supported it. I was, you know, I stayed out of trouble. I didn't, you know, we were. Either we played basketball. I mean, that was it. It was like we studied and played basketball and hung out with family, like my cousins and stuff. So, you know, when I found something that I liked and, you know, my brothers and everybody would be outside playing, I would be like making my own tapes with my dad's, you know, his stereo system, you know, going through his records. So when I just, you know, my parents have like a back house. So I kind of just moved everything back there. And then, yeah.
So that was your studio?
Yeah, that just became the studio. That's where it all started. And like, and I just had a ball. I was just so curious about everything. I was just trying to figure it out at that point.
So you and Chase Infinite met at basketball camp before forming the Numbskulls in the mid-90s and cut a demo at Ice-T's home studio,
Yeah.
which I'd never known until recently. Who made that happen?
The person that made that happen was Nefertiti. And shout out to Neff. She was, Neff was an ill MC. I think she was signed to Mercury, I think that's right. I think she was signed to Mercury or some label, but she was an ill MC. She was, a conscious rapper back in the day. And when me and Chase started working, she got involved because, Chase was like, he was already like developed, you know what I mean? In terms of being a rapper. I mean, he had the voice, he had, he was animated. And like at that time it was like, you had groups like Numbskulls and Rumpelstiltskins and all that, you know what I mean? It was like, that was like the thing to do. So then we signed a demo deal with Loud, and Chase's his cousin Bigga was a big part of that. Bigga B, who used to do Unity back in the day, rest in peace. He launched our careers literally, and so just through them, we got a demo deal with Steve Rifkin, and they gave us like a budget, and we went and rented Ice-T's studio. And we work with Diamond D. We have a song with Diamond D.
Amazing.
That was that, like, I don't even think I have a copy of that, but that was a crazy. It's somewhere, but it's like that was just a crazy experience. We were so nervous to work with him. You know what I mean? And especially being a West Coast group, like seeing him in person, I was just like, that's really Diamond D. What do we do? And he's playing beats on the spot, and we had to pick stuff, and it was crazy. And then Ice-T's walking around, and Kool Keith was there, and Ice-T's telling us, he's telling us stories about, just like his beef with LL. You know what I mean? Like it was just like a history lesson every day. We were there for like 3 days, and he lives up in the Hollywood Hills. You can see all of LA. Like he had like a Shark Tank in the back of the studio. He had an arcade. You know what I mean? So
I expect nothing less from him.
Yeah, it was just surreal. So it was like we were just around royalty, literally. We were around like hip hop royalty, and it was just like, we were still trying to find ourselves as a group. We just didn't, we ended up not getting signed to Loud, but we were on like their spring sampler. They did a spring sample with like Mobb Deep, Wu-Tang, Cellar Dwellers, and then we had a song on there. So that was like, you couldn't tell us anything after that. We were like, we're on Loud. We're part of the roster. It just never really worked out. But, we just kept recording.
I mean, it did, just not.
Yeah, it just didn't work out. Yeah. Yeah.
So after changing the group of the name to Self Scientific, was your debut album, The Self Science, your first endeavor with production in like a professional manner?
Yeah. I mean, we had just cut demos up to that point. I mean, I had a group called Soul Survivors with my best friend, Rossi Don, before I even met Chase. And we were a group, and then Rossi Don just, he just stopped rapping. He was like Andre 3000, like at 15. He was incredible. But he ended up doing a song on our first album on Self Science. And so that wasn't like, we put out 12 inches before the album came out. So that was like, that was technically like my first time we like, people actually heard of my production, like on a commercial level. So yeah. And that album just launched my career production wise. Cause when you do a full album front to back, and like we were critically acclaimed, and, people were, it just opened the eyes of a lot of people, a lot of artists, and that just kind of like, people just started calling me after that.
Yeah. Fun fact, first time I heard you guys was a mixtape that a friend of mine me in the 90s. So.
Oh, that's crazy.
Did this open the door for you to work with West Coast locals like Razzcazz and DJ Muggs in the early 2000s?
Yeah. I mean, Raz was my first placement, my first, like, shout out to Razzcazz. We worked on the Van Gogh album, which I don't think was ever officially released. But the song Van Gogh was used in like the second season of The Sopranos, like the season premiere. And there's a crazy story behind that. just because I didn't even know. I just happened to be watching it and with my mom, and the song came on, and I was like, yo, that's my song. And I remember Chase and Crondon called me like, yo, did you see that? Because everybody was watching the show at that point. And so, yeah, there, I ended up like that. That was like my first check was like through like getting a TV and, a TV placement basically. So that was just like kind of surreal, just off the top. But after working with him, I just kept running to people that were like beat brokers. Like around that time, you had beat brokers and people who would just like, they had relationships with producers and labels. So they would take your beats and, and a bunch of other beats from other producers and shop them for you and take their percentage or whatever. But they didn't officially manage you, basically. So I just started doing that, and I just started getting placements, off of that. And then me and Chase just, we just kept recording. And Chase was working, I think he was working at Priority at the time, but he had a bunch of different industry jobs. He was doing marketing and promotion and, all that kind of stuff. He had been working in the industry for since he was 14. So, yeah, it's crazy.
So I watched an interview with Grammy Award-winning producer Rocky, who named you as one of his mentors. Was there anyone when you were coming up who you looked to?
Man, I mean, it's Dre, Dr. Dre. I mean, I met Dre when I was 13. Through my sister. They were really good friends. My parents threw a party for her, and he showed up. At their house, and he was there, and Chris the Glove, all these people that I grew up, just idolizing. And I remember he talked to me and my brother, my older brother Jalal, telling us how he got started, all the obstacles he went through to get to, where he was. And, he was a legend already at that point. NWA had already happened. I had bought CIA and World Class Wrecking Crew and all the stuff that he had produced. So it was just surreal talking to him. And I was already DJing, and I just told him, I was like, I'm gonna be a producer just like you. I told him that day. And then fast forward to 2003, 2004, we reconnected through an artist that he signed, and he was he remembered me, and he told everybody in the studio the story of how we met, and asked about my sister, how's she doing, and it's just I was like, how do you remember that?
You made an impression.
Yeah, I made an impression, and I was there. I was there producing, and he was like, you told me he was like, you're right. You told me you're going to be doing this. And then probably months later, I signed, a production deal with him, and I was a part of the staff. So he's been my mentor ever since. He's dropped so many jewels on me over the years, mind-blowing stuff, and just to see him work, it's just master, it's mastery. It's a master class, literally. Every time you work with him on how to finish a record, the urgency of finishing a record, to he's mixing it as it's going down. So it's by the time at the end of the night, you pretty much have a finished, complete record. He doesn't, his records don't sound like demos. They sound like finished. It's a finished product. And it's when you witness that, it's man, I got to step it up, and just his humility, he, as big as he is, and he's just so iconic to be as humble as he is, and willing to learn, and willing to be open. I mean, it's you can't have an ego, when you're around Dr. Dre. You just can't. If he doesn't have one, you definitely don't have the right to have an ego, for sure. But he's my mentor. He's my big brother, and we've had some amazing one-on-ones. Actually, I have an interview that I recorded. We were in Vegas. I never put it up anywhere, but I filmed it.
Oh yeah, you gotta do that.
Yes, I'm gonna put it up. One of these days, I'm gonna put it up, because it's I asked him about how he gets, what he does when he has creative block and all that kind of stuff, and just it's more in depth, from a producer creative standpoint. So
yeah, amazing. So you've worked with many heavyweights, including Dr. Dre, Jay-Z, 50 Cent, and Kanye, but some say you're best known for your work on Eminem's 2010 album Recovery. Did the two of you agree on the direction for the record, from the jump, or was it kind of you came with two different ideas? Or?
No, I mean that album, the way that came, it's weird because it's kind of started off with Slaughterhouse. When I worked with Slaughterhouse, I was already, because me and Chase would go to New York. I would take trips to New York, and we would go sit with Paul, Paul Rosenberg, and Chase was always like, "Yo, man, you need to mess with Khalil. I'm telling you, and it would never really happen. It wouldn't, but it was just like planting those seeds, So when I started working with Dre, it kind of gave me a stamp, like, okay, he's a part of the family, that kind of thing. And I just worked my way up, and I was just on a run, within Aftermath to the point where when I was working with Slaughterhouse and a bunch of other records that come out, but Slaughterhouse caught the attention of Paul, and he was like, "Yo, man, this record is crazy." And I was like, "That's funny," because I was like, "That was for Marshall," and he was like, "You're kidding me." I was like, "No," I was like, "That I made that with him in mind, literally." And he was just like sick about that because he loved the record. So, and that's the Slaughterhouse one. And what happened was he was like, "Do you have anything yet? Do you have anything like that? Like, can you send me?" And I was like, "Yeah." I was just ready. I had a bunch of stuff that I worked, with the New Royales. We were working on our first album, and we were writing together, and we just sent him a bunch of records, and they loved it. It was the sound he was looking for. You know what I mean? I didn't even know what the direction was until like when they won the Grammy for Crack a Bottle is when I met Marshall. Dre called me and was like, "Yo, Marshall wants to meet you. Come to the studio." And I knew that he had already demoed some of the songs, but he wanted to play them for me in person. So I went and listened to him, and I was just like, and I remember Alchemist being there, and Al was like, he was like, "Dog, these records are crazy. Like, dude, you got one. You got like," he's like, "I think you got like 4 on the album." You know what I mean? So he's pumping me up because we've been on the same grind for like a minute. I mean, he was already a legend at that point, but we were just like, I'm still working my way up. So he's like cheering me on, during the whole thing, and just being there with Paul and Dre and Marshall, and they were just playing me the records, and then he was like, "Do you have any more?" And I was like, "Yeah," but I really didn't have everything with me. I had stuff that we were working on, and I didn't bring it with me. So like, I was like, "Look," I was like, "Are you guys back in tomorrow?" And he was like, "Yeah." He was like, I was like, "So tomorrow," I was like, "I have some more records. I don't have them on me right now. Is it cool if I come back?" And he was like, "Yeah, please." So the next night they called me. They're like, "Yo, when are you coming?" And I was like, "All right, I'm on my way." So I went up there.
That must have felt so good.
And it was, and I remember it was Scott Storch. It was me, Dre, Scott Storch, and Eminem in the front room at Encore. And like, I started playing more records, and there was this one that ended up being Castle, my Castle from Revival, and he started writing to it on the spot. And when he starts doing that, like Dre gave me the thumbs up. He was like, like he wasn't, M was like in the zone, and Dre was like, "Yeah, you're good, you're good." He's writing to it. Yeah, you're straight. So so that was just crazy. It was just surreal to be in there with like heavyweights. You know what I mean? And I had worked with 50 up to that point, so I've been in the studio with 50 a couple times. And so I was just like in the family, but I worked my way up to working with M. It's still mind blowing because the album was like up for album of the year. It was just like the biggest record. It was crazy. It was like amazing. The story of of that year.
So your production can also be heard in several major film releases, including Cat's Paw and the Netflix original film Bright. Was your process working on music for film different than how you usually approach a project?
I mean, I think like the way my production is, for the most part, is very layered and it's not linear. Like I have different, my arrangements are different because there are buildups and there's other changes going on. So I think it just works really well for TV and film. So like with, Kings Never Die. I mean, even with Spider-Man, Into the Spider-Verse, Elevate, that was like, it's just my production off top just kind of has like a certain energy to it and a certain aggressiveness that, a lot of music supervisors look for. So that was just, and my first job out of college was with Access Hollywood. So I was a music coordinator. So I work with a lot of, like field producers and editors on the show in terms of picking music for their pieces and like what they look for. And it's really no different than doing stuff on film, because that's what they want. They want to be able to have different peaks and valleys in the production and like a certain emotion to it. And I feel like all my music has an emotional component, and an aggressiveness that like, you just kind of combine them and it works well. Like it's like a cinematic kind of feel. So it just, I mean, I've been fortunate to like have that experience at Access Hollywood to understand that world. Mm-hmm. But then, also like my music is, I really, especially studying Dre, it's like it's always like I try to add the best elements I can, to make it like a cinematic, a big production. It's a lot different now because like production isn't that like big like that anymore. It's like very streamlined, very to the point. Mm-hmm. So for TV and film, that stuff works. It just works really well.
Nice. So you're a 13-time Grammy nominee and a 3-time Grammy Award winner, yet you're still so humble. Speaking of humble, how do you keep such a level head when juggling multiple projects?
I just work. I mean, it's just work. I don't, it's one of those things, I don't take time to celebrate. I don't, I think it's just really about the work. I love the work. Mm-hmm. When stuff comes out, it's great. It's great when those nominations happen. I feel like it just speaks to the work that I put in. And, and the artists that I work with, they appreciate it. They appreciate like the work and the care I put into what I do. And I just think that's just a big part of it. It's, you have to be humble because there's so many talented producers. I can just from my generation, you know what I mean? You got like everybody from Jake One to like Knots to High Tech. It's like, these dudes are some of the greatest to ever do it. You know what I mean? So you can't really poke your chest out because you listen to what they're doing and you're like, man, I gotta step it up. You know what I'm saying? I'm constantly reminded of that. So you have to be humble. You just gotta work. You gotta work and get better. And I just focus on that. And that's really, I learned that from my dad. I learned that from my mom. I learned that from my dad and my mom just to, it's really about the work. And she still tells me that. Like if I'm in a rut or whatever, she's like, just do the work. Just do the work. It's all gonna work out if you just you put your head down and you work.
Yeah, I remember reading it's all for you. It's all about work and taking care of your family. So
yeah, that's it. So I'm thankful for the accolades and all that kind of stuff, but it's not even about that. It's just really about the work and just getting better. And I have a certain standard for myself, and I just stick to that.
So as someone who's been in the business for more than 2 decades, how do you feel about the use of digital production versus analog?
I love it all. I think like technology pushes music forward, you know what I'm saying? And like, I always explain this to people because especially when I could talk to an older producer and they're like, oh, these guys are cheating or whatever, but that's a part of technology. The piano was technology, like the trumpet was technology at a certain point, right? So it just, it's supposed to evolve. It's supposed to, I guess, not get easier, but you're supposed to have these tools that help you become more creative, and it's really what you do with it. And like, so I love learning about new technology and being able to apply it to what I do, because I feel like my music is getting better because of it, and I'm learning so much, so it makes me dive in more. Like I feel like over the quarantine I've learned so much over this time. It's crazy. And being able to talk to other producers, like, and we're just like exchanging information, it's been like an eye-opening experience because I'm just learning all the time. So I feel like the technology it's gonna happen. You know, I feel like in 5 years, something's gonna come along and it's gonna change. It's like programming and all that stuff. It's gonna be a wrap. We're gonna have to figure out new ways to create. And I think like that's just where it is. You know, a 13-year-old can pick up a laptop and start and create a hit, literally. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I didn't have access like that. I got an ASR 10. I had to learn it. You know what I'm saying? By myself. There was no YouTube. I had to literally learn it by myself. And yeah, I mean that's just a part of the game.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of producers, I ask that question. They're like, if you don't stick with it, you're gonna get left behind, or if you don't try to grow with it.
Yeah, you got to keep up. You have to keep up. I was just having this conversation earlier today. It's like you just got to stick with it and learn. Be open. You know, you just have to be open to learning and applying new things, and it's gonna make you a better creator. You know, a better creative person. Like, and it's definitely making me a better producer for sure.
Amazing. So when you go digging, which genres do you spend the most time with?
Oh man, it's changed. It's crazy because like I stopped digging because I don't really sample anymore. Like I mean, I'm not gonna say I stopped digging. I still listen, but like in terms of like going and buying records, you know, until when I started going to Jazzy Jeff's like playlist retreat and Gene, who you had on, you know, who you interviewed.
He's tuned in right now.
Okay, peace out to Gene. Thank you, Gene, man. He reignited like my love for vinyl, literally. Like he and Jake, like literally, they inspired me to like get back into collective vinyl. But you know, going there and just being around ill creatives and like just how deep they're going, it's like, man, I keep telling even Gene, like we talk all the time, like, man, I gotta catch up. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, I'm still playing catch up. So, you know, I'm a huge prog rock fan. I love fusion, you know, so that is like that was my go-to for years. But now like I'm on like, you know, gospel and soul and trying to find like just interesting records, different combinations. And Gene is the perfect person to talk to because he knows exactly. He was a producer, so he knows exactly when I bring certain things up. He's like, "Oh, I know exactly what you want," and he can pull it out. You know what I mean? So it definitely cuts your time to have. But I used to dig. I used to go to the swap meets, Pasadena swap meet with like Madlib and Babu and Rhett Matic and J Rock, like all the homies, Evidence, like, and we used to all go out there, be out there like, you know, 5 in the morning, 6 in the morning, buying records. And I would just walk, they would look at me crazy because I walk out with like 2 huge boxes. I would just buy everything. I would just try. I bought so much garbage, but I also bought like amazing, you know what I mean? Amazing records I didn't even know about. So it was really about discovery. And I think like I'm back on that now. I'm like discovering again, you know, but it's a lot easier because I have so many friends that are just on top of it. They're like some of the best, you know, vinyl collectors in the game. So I it's like having like a cheat, you know what I mean? A cheat guide to digging. So
Nothing bad about cheating if it turns into something good.
yeah.
So in a recent interview, you credit Public Enemy, Battle Cat, DJ Quick, and Dr. Dre as the inspiration behind your Native Instruments expansion. Why is it for you to pay homage to your hometown?
I mean, it's just where I grew up. You know, it's like my production style is a blend of East Coast and West Coast. Like, I'm a huge Pete Rock fan. I'm a huge Dr. Dre fan. I feel like my production was a blend of those two styles, you know, and you can throw in DJ Premier too, but really like, you know, and I have to put in Organized Noise too. I should have mentioned them because Organized Noise is a huge influence on my production because having the live instruments, you know, added to it and their approach just overall. But I mean, I grew up in LA. I grew up on, you know, listening to Dr. Dre mixtapes. A lot of people don't even know that he used to do those. You know, I grew up, 1580 K-Day, you know, listening to Mixmaster Spade and JJ Fad and, you know what I'm saying, King T. And that's just, you know, we're a car culture, we're a gangbang culture. So I grew up around all that. And, you know, I just grew up through basketball. You know, basketball was my main outlet. I didn't get into music until like 7th, 8th grade. You know what I mean? So before that, it was just all basketball. But, you know, I wanted to reflect that in terms of like the neighborhoods that I grew up in and my experience in LA. I wanted that reflected in my native instruments, my artist expansion, because it's a very unique, the sound that I have is like very unique, you know, and I feel like that's what kind of separates me from everybody else. It's like that blending of East Coast and West. I don't sound all the way West Coast, but I also don't sound completely East Coast either. So it's like the perfect blend. So I wanted people to get that in the expansion. And I've been known for like drums, like everybody, you know, I get compliments. That was like the weakest part of my production. A friend of mine, Taz Arnold, I remember he told me, he's like, man, if you ever get your drums together, he's like, you're gonna kill it. He's like, you're gonna be incredible. And I remember him telling me that, and I worked so hard to get better at making drums and picking my drum sounds and all that kind of stuff. So I kind of overcompensate now, you know, in terms of like my drums. I spend a lot of time crafting it, and I feel like that's what people love about the expansion is that the quality, you know, the quality is like, you know, top notch. You know, I really spent a lot of time, and that was like 2 years in the making. So, and just trying to figure out what it was going to be. So it was an incredible experience, and like to see people respond to like, this is one of the best expansions they've ever done. And you know what I mean? Like it's inspired so many people, and that's the whole thing. Is like, I just want to be able to inspire people to, you know, to create, you know, and the fact that I accomplished that was like gold for me.
Someone just asked if you ever met Dilla.
I did. I met Dilla. Crazy story about that. I was going to Morehouse. We drove. I'm in Atlanta, and instead of going to Jamaica for spring break like all the rest of the seniors, I decided me and 3 of my friends decided to drive to DC to go see my brother, and then we were going to go to New York. So we drove. I ended up getting arrested in North Carolina for speeding. A racist cop followed me, handcuffed me, took me to jail. Like, luckily, my grandmother just sent me like money, so I bailed myself out. Me and we, you know, pulled up our money, and like I got, you know, we bailed out, and then we just kept going. We got to DC, and then I drove to, and then we I don't know if we took, I think we like took the bus or something to New York. So a good friend of mine, Gary Harris, rest in peace, legendary Gary Harris, was like, yo, where are you at? And I was like, you know, we're just roaming around New York. He's like, yo, come up to the studio. I'm like, okay. We get up there, Q-Tip and Dilla are sitting right there. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. And I just made a new beat tape like that. This is before CDs, burning CDs. I made a new beat tape, and it was probably one of the best beat tapes I've ever made. It was like next level. Like, I feel like I jumped another level at that point. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, Dilla's there, and I'm a huge fan. You know, I'm like nervous, like really, you know, probably more nervous meeting him than Q-Tip. And Q-Tip is like, you know, Mount Rushmore. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I mean, Q-Tip was like, yo, man, play me your beats. And I'm like, okay. And I'm playing it. And like, they're like, yo, like, this is crazy. And Dilla, like, you know, like, just like grabbing to the side. He's like, yo, man, you're dope. I was like, word? I was like, that was off top. That was like, I could have just gone back to school at that point. I was done. I have a picture of, I think I may have posted it once, but that's a moment I'll never forget, you know, because he's one of the greatest to ever do it. And obviously Q-Tip is too. So, you know, to meet 2 of your heroes right there. And I mean, all my New York trips were epic. Like, every time I went to visit my cousin Drew or Gary, you know what I'm saying? Like, I met D'Angelo, I met KRS-One. I mean, like, you name it. It was like, I had some of the craziest moments in New York just visiting while I was in college. So, but that was probably the most epic out of all of them.
Very nice. Thanks for sharing. Where do you tend to find the new sounds that you mentioned you're always searching for? in that interview?
Just from experimenting, like just buying new gear, um, new plugins. Just like you have to constantly look for new ways, to make sounds. Like it's really about your palette, and I'm always trying to expand it. When you listen to records, you kind of internalize the sound of it, and even the melodies. But really, the sounds, like looking at the back of records and seeing what they use. When you listen to prog rock records, it's like, what am I listening to? I don't even know. What are they using? So it's like really, it's just over the years been a process of just trying to figure out how they were making stuff. Even listening to like Stevie Wonder or Parliament, how are they making these sounds?
Mm-hmm.
And that's just been my life, my career journey is just to like figure out how to make sounds that are unique, that like you've never heard before. And that's like, to me, all my favorite music has always been that. Like, what is that? I don't even know. Like, what am I listening to?
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like most producers now, like a lot of people that are making their own sample packs and all that kind of stuff, like I feel like everybody's searching now. And it's just a big part of production is just how do that's how you separate yourself from everybody else, is like finding new sounds. So I'm always buying new gear. I'm always buying like pedals. I'm always buying, new plugins, and I'm trying different things and just trying everything. I just try everything, literally. And I study it. I watch documentaries. I'm talking to other producers, like, other people that I respect. And, I've been collecting analog synths for like, over 20 years now. So, I went through an organ phase where I was just buying all organs, like weird organs and stuff. So yeah, I'm just a sound junkie. I really, that's all I've focused on for, that's just a big part of my production. So.
And you just stay a student, which is
Yeah,
nice.
always a student, always.
What do you hope the collaboration will do for your brand?
I just bringing more awareness to what I do. People can look back at what I've accomplished, as a producer, but then also like, how I feel like, I've been a pioneer in certain ways, like in terms of like even sampling, and creating your own samples. Like I was doing that in like 2004, 2005. Everybody's doing sample packs and all that kind of stuff now, but back then, I kind of made a conscious decision that I was going to work with more musicians and like, and try to recreate the sounds that I heard on record. And, and that was just, it was also a business decision because of just clearing samples and getting killed on publishing.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, and then I just realized that, like, man, I can really do it. You can really create stuff that's just as good as what you hear on record. It's just really find the musicians and really being
Mm-hmm.
patient and being willing to discover. And like all the people that I work with during that time are willing to be in the studio for hours and hours, and we would just literally experiment and just try to find new sounds, and it was amazing, because it was just like, when I have footage of everything, and like when I go back and watch it, I'm like, man, we were like way ahead of the curve. We were, what people are doing now, we were doing, 10 years before. So, there are other people making their own samples and all that kind of stuff too, but I feel like, I was making samples and then flipping them right away. You know what I mean? So it was like, and doing jam sessions with musicians and arranging it, as we're going. You know what I mean? So like, not a lot of producers were doing that at the time, not on the fly. So, that's just like a part that, it's just a part of what I want people to know about what I do. It's like a collaborative thing. It's about musicianship. It's about working with some of the best musicians, and really just understand the possibilities. Like, you don't have to sample a record. You can make something just as dope if you pull the right people in and you work hard at it. You know what I mean? It takes more work, but it's gratifying, because when you place a record that's completely original. When I worked with Jay-Z and did Mama I Made It, and I worked with Dante Winslow, and that was a sample that he made when I talked to Dre, and he was like, yo, I need the sample information. I was like, that's not a sample, Dre. He was like, no, he's like, for real, man, please send me this. I was like, no, it's not a sample. He was bugging out. He was like, dude, are you serious? I was like, no, it's all original. And he was like, wow. He was like, you killed that. You know what I mean? And my respect from Dre, like, it went through the roof at that point, because he was just like, you know, no one had done that in that, you know, in the camp like that. Or I can't say that, but it was just like, you know, that was like a first for him, where he was,
now on that level.
Like a sample, you know.
You just said it was more work, but is it really more work if you don't have to go through the whole sample clearance process?
It's more work to create it, because, you know, you gotta make the sounds, and then you have to wait for the moment, right? You hope that you can hit record and that you capture something really dope. And some days you don't get that moment. Some days it's everything is just whack. You just don't, you know, people aren't clicking. But, you know, the more you do it, the better it gets. You know what I mean? So we worked, I mean, around the clock. Like, I didn't go home. We spent a lot of time making sounds, jamming, you know, trying different things, listening to records, you know. So it's like a lot of research, and a lot of just recording. But I think it just worked out, you know. After a while, we figured it out, and it just worked. You know what I'm saying? So,
what have you been listening to, like, more of or the most of since the pandemic hit?
Man, I love everything Griselda's doing, everything Alchemist is doing, everything Madlib, Freddie Gibbs, like, you know, those dudes they're just beyond legends to me. I love that group, Khruangbin. I love them.
And we just learned about them.
Yeah, they are. I mean, I became a fan immediately, you know. So everything they do, I follow. When they sampled them on that Jay Electronica Jay-Z out, I was like, this is, you know, insane. So, and then I've just been listening to, I mean, I just have I've been trying to, you know, just getting back into DJing, and, you know, I just practice a lot. So I'm just really like back into building up my Serato library. So I'm just listening to a lot of funk and a lot of, you know, rare sample grooves, breaks, all that kind of stuff. So I'm just learning from that standpoint. And then a lot of like 90s electronic, like Broadcast and Stereo Lab, and, you know, those, and Portishead and all that kind of stuff. Like, I'm, you know, huge fans I'm a huge fan of those type of groups. Yeah, I mean, mainly just that, you know, and then just beats, you know. I'm just listening to beats constantly from everybody. Like, I've been finding old CDs, you know what I mean? Like, just of my stuff, you know, Jake, Knots. I mean, I got all kind of crazy, you know what I mean, stuff that people don't have. High tech, you know what I mean? So I constantly go back, and that stuff is still inspiring to me.
Can you share a bit about your work with Yes to Jobs? Have you been able to continue your work with them in recent months?
Yeah, so Yes to Jobs. Yeah, I'm always working with them. My mom ran the program in the 90s through Herb Alpert and Jerry Moss, you know, through A&M, and they relaunched this past year. And, you know, given all everything that's going on in the world, you know, obviously with George Floyd and social injustice and all these things that are happening, it's like perfect timing for the program to come back, because there's been all this talk about, you know, Black executives and, you know, the music business, and how we don't control what's happening, even though we're controlling the top 10, you know, songs in the country and all that kind of stuff. We're breaking records, but we don't control our genre, you know. We're not running it. We're not making the decisions. And so Yes to Jobs, like, provide an opportunity for minority high school students and college students to get jobs in the music business. I was a part of it. Chase Infinite was a part of it. Ethiopia, you know, runs Motown and worked at Universal Music Publishing, and so many others that are like in the business now, that are executives. And you know, we are the result of the program. So given what the narrative is now, you know, it's a good time for this to come back. and we're just trying to get support for it. And now that I have, we're in a position where we can bring people of influence, to the program and vice versa, and get people to participate. That's like really important. I'm really trying to help my mom figure that out. And so, and I've connected her with a lot of people, and Chase is doing the same thing. And, we're just, it gave us so much. I had 5 internships that were amazing. I learned so much. So it's like really important that this program continues, because we need more of us in these buildings making these decisions, and take control of our music, because it's just important. Some of the decisions being made are not in the best interest of the culture of hip hop, and and what we're trying to do. There needs to be a balance, and there are artists that need the same support as some of the most popular artists. You know what I mean? So, and and just conscious music, and people they need to hear that right now. Right now is the best time to for conscious music to come back. So, I'm really trying to help as much as I can with the program, and all that stuff. So.
Do you have any current projects you'd like to promote? Can we expect another album from New Royales anytime soon?
New Royales, I'm thinking. I think we're gonna maybe at some point release like our kind of like first album, like our demo album that we have been living with for a while, and it's such dope music that we just want people to hear it. I don't even care if it makes money, whatever, but it's really just the feeling of it. It still feels great, you know what I mean? And it just we never properly released it, and it never really had its chance, you know what I mean? It had a chance, so that, and then me and Chase, we're working, so we're finishing up our album. We're gonna drop a new single pretty soon, and trying to tighten up up our record. I definitely think it's our best work, for sure. Just where Chase is as an MC, and like what he's been saying and what he's been talking about for the last 10 years is relevant right now. He's kind of predicted what's going on now.
Right.
So, and the production, I feel like, is stepped up just because of, what I've learned since our last release. So we're firing on all cylinders. We have a really dope album. I'm really proud of where it is, and we're just trying to tighten it up and just make sure we got it. We're saying everything we need to say on it. So.
Yeah. So speaking of Selfish Pride, which dropped in June, in 2014, following the murder of Eric Garner, how do recent events involving police brutality compare to those that you recall from that time? You kind of just mentioned that it's pretty similar.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, we're at a time where it's just kind of crazy that we're witnessing, these are public lynchings at this point. And as a Black man, as a person that has kids that, they have to grow up in this world, to actually see that, to continue to see that, I just feel like it's definitely on purpose. It's definitely not like something that just happens. Like we're seeing this for a reason, and they want us to see this, and it's gonna spark outrage, obviously. I've been pulled over by 3-4 cop cars. You know what I'm saying? They searched my car. All that. So I'm pretty sure most of my friends or people that they've experienced that, and know that it's not even in your hands when you get pulled over. Anything could happen. They could have a bad day, and that's it. So, I'm glad people are the difference is that people are aware now. That's the main thing, is that people are outraged, and it's not just us. It's not just Black people. It's everybody's seeing the horror that we have to deal with, and that we continue to deal with, and and we have to we have to take action. It starts voting, whatever it is, it's got to happen. And it's about our survival at this point. It's been made clear that what I'm saying, we don't matter. So we have to make sure that we protect our own. That's really where I'm at with it. But we have to keep talking about it, and I feel like for me and Chase, that's our our purpose as a group. We don't care if 3 people listen to us. We don't care. It has to be said, and we have to speak up about it. And we've done that, but we're going to continue to do it.
Well, I'm sure everyone appreciates everything that you guys are doing. We've got a few minutes left before the hour is up. Is there anything else that you want to add or promote?
I mean, just, the artist expansion on Native Instruments, like, please pick it up if you haven't already. I know it's inspired a lot of people, and I'm just, I'm excited that, people still love it. You know what I mean? I'm still getting great reviews. People are hitting me up, sending me their beats and all that kind of stuff. So that's been great. And then just, there's, music coming out pretty soon, just stuff that I produced or co-produced that's coming out, pretty soon. So I'm really excited about that. Can't wait.
How can people keep an eye on that kind of stuff? Will you promote it on here?
Yeah, I'll definitely promote it on here. Yeah, when it comes out. I mean, that's it really. And then just, Yes to Jobs. If you're interested, go to yestojobs.org. If anybody's looking to do internship or trying to break into the business, it's a great program, and I highly recommend it. And it really helped me to get to this point. So definitely check that out.
Nice. Khalil, thank you so much for taking the time. I hope you and your family stay safe, and look forward to hearing what you've got coming.
Thank you. I appreciate it. You stay safe too.
Thanks. Have a great weekend.
Okay.